After making our way through Victory Road, we finally arrive at the Pokemon League. The first member of the Elite Four we face is the Ice-type specialist, Lorelei. I'm going to be honest with you, in this battle I made some very stupid decisions which almost lost me the battle. I lead off with Lapras against Lorelei's Dugong. On the first turn, Dugong tries to use Surf, but thanks to Lapras's Water Absorb ability, it does nothing. We then use Thunderbolt, which brings Dugong to about half HP. On the next turn, Lorelei uses Hail, but since my Pokemon are Ice types, this doesn't bother us. We then fire off another Thunderbolt, which gets an unnecessary crit to take Dugong down. Lorelei then sends out Cloyster, which manages to set up a layer of spikes before it gets taken down by a Thunderbolt. Out next is Slowbro. We hit Slowbro with a Thunderbolt, which does a huge amount of damage, but he manages to hold on. Slowbro then uses Yawn, which means after the next turn, Lapras will fall asleep. Not wanting to Lapras to fall asleep, I switch into Jinx whilst Lorelei heals up Slowbro. I fire off a couple of Shadow Balls, but it does very little damage thanks to Slowbro's decent bulk. Slowbro hits us with a Yawn. I decide to take the risk and stay in, hoping a third Shadow Ball would be enough to take it down, but Slowbro holds on with a Sliver. Jinx falls asleep, so I switch into Lapras, who immediately gets hit by a Yawn on the switch in. Again, not wanting to Lapras to fall asleep, I switch out into Cloyster, who also gets hit by a Yawn. I suck it up however and decide to use an Ice Beam to take Slowbro down. Lorelei then sends out her own Jinx, so I switch into Lapras. I try to go for a Surf, but Jinx outspeeds and puts Lapras to sleep using Lovely Kiss. After tanking a few Ice Punches from Jinx, Lapras finally wakes up and hits a Surf for about half. On the next turn however, Jinx lands another Lovely Kiss, putting Lapras back to sleep. We wake up 2 turns later though, and land another Surf, but it just barely doesn't kill. On the next turn, Lorelei heals up Jinx. We land another Surf, doing about half, but we then once again get put to sleep by a Lovely Kiss. I swear to God, I hate this game sometimes. After a few turns, we wake up and Surf, but it still isn't enough to take Jinx out. On the next turn, Lorelei switches into Lapras as we use Surf, but due to Water Absorb, it doesn't do anything. Lorelei hits us with a Body Slam, which we survive, and we fire off a Thunderbolt, doing a solid amount of damage. On the next turn, however, Lapras falls to another Body Slam. I switch into Cloyster and set up spikes. We then use Ice Beam to do a bit of chip damage and get rid of Lapras's held Citrus Berry. I then stupidly switch into Jinx, hoping it will wake up, but she goes down before ever getting to fire off a single move. I then switch into Dugong, and after a few takedowns, Lapras finally falls. Lorelei then brings Jinx back out, but thanks to the spikes I set up, Jinx immediately falls and we win the battle.